Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about Xbox's recent strategy and how they've essentially ditched the console wars altogether. Now, I've been pretty vocal about this over the years. I usually think the whole console war thing is a pretty idiotic thing to partake in because it's been this like 20-25 year ongoing thing online where people have this like ridiculous brand loyalty to a piece of plastic that mostly all play the same exact video games anyway, and they make it like this massive part of their personality. But from this front of the console wars, which is the actual corporations and the companies that are constantly trying to one-up each other so they can make the most money, this is a pretty significant development because what Xbox is doing here is so unlike the other big competitors like Nintendo and Sony. It almost brings up the question of, do they consider this a fight at all anymore? Now, as we all know, over the last few years, Xbox has been doing a lot to try and diversify the way that they make money away from console sales. This is probably because, realistically, Microsoft cannot necessarily compete when it comes to console sales. All the way back to the first Xbox, Microsoft has never one time had the best-selling console in a generation of games. Even the Xbox 360, as popular as that was narrowly outsold by the PS3, and both were way outsold by the Nintendo Wii, which is one of the most popular consoles ever. So Xbox, I think they're at a point where they realize, like, we're never going to bunny hop over either Nintendo or Sony when it comes to console sales, and so now as a result, we're seeing this interesting strategy where they're trying to spread their offerings to basically everywhere as a way of trying to get into the competition internally in a way, right? So recently there was this big announcement basically by Phil Spencer, which told everybody that they were going to start using the competitors' logos in all of their trailers now, which seems like a pretty foreign concept. Imagine like a Nintendo trailer for Mario or whatever, and the first thing you see is the Xbox logo. That would be a very odd thing for most people, but apparently Microsoft thinks this is the way of the future, and so let's go ahead and really, I guess, explore what the rationale is here. So Microsoft, you might have noticed, now flags that its games are coming to rival platforms during Xbox showcases. It's something we've seen in recent months as part of the company's multi-platform video game push. For example, the recent Xbox Developer Direct included PlayStation 5 along Xbox Series X and S, PC, and Game Pass at the end of the Ninja Gaiden 4, Doom the Dark Ages, and Claire Obscur Expedition 33 segments. As recently as Microsoft's June 2024 showcase, that wasn't the case. There, Doom the Dark Ages was announced for PlayStation 5 immediately after the Xbox event, although subsequent individual trailers did feature the PS5 logo. BioWare's Dragon Age The Veilguard was down as coming to Xbox Series X and S and PC, skipping the PS5 version. It was the same for Diablo 4 expansion Vessel of Hatred and Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Shadows. So now Xbox has decided that in terms of their marketing, they're just going to start showing off all of their games as being basically for everybody. And we've heard over the last few months, there's rumors in the industry that games like even Halo might be coming to PlayStation in the future. So Xbox has shifted their strategy away from like directly competing in console sales, because in reality, it's not only just a battle that they're probably never going to win, but selling the consoles more than the competition isn't even necessarily what's going to make you all of the money. So most people don't realize this, but when it comes to console sales, usually there's a loss attributed to selling a console. You know, let's say you sell a PlayStation for $400. Well, usually like 200 of those dollars are going to be lost, and the console manufacturer tries to make up for this by selling you the games, the accessories, online memberships, things like that as a way to kind of recoup that loss. It's more of like an initial investment for the company. So when it comes to Xbox, trying to like, you know, ramp up all of these sales for your console, like, yeah, maybe you'll sell more games down the road, but ultimately that's what's going to make you the money anyway, is just making games that people want to play. And we've seen even Sony Sony, for instance, they in the last couple of years have really embraced porting their massive PlayStation games to PC so people on Steam can play them as well. And they've been largely successful with that as well. I mean, for instance, me personally, I played all of Helldivers 2 on my Steam account. I never even had it on PlayStation. So there's been this realization in the industry, especially with things like multi-platform crossplay, things like that. You don't have to be so exclusive. You don't have to try and hide everything behind your own branding, right? 10, 15 years ago, there was actually a reason to pick between like a PlayStation or an Xbox or whatever, because you were choosing like a game selection, you were sometimes even choosing better performance. Realistically, with consoles now, the performance things are just like, it's such a narrow race, it really isn't even worth picking and choosing and fighting over like that anymore anyway. Also because you're never really gonna beat PC as is. So in Xbox's shoes here, right, they can sell Halo on PlayStation, they can, move all of these like first party games, all of these like studios they've been working to acquire over the last couple of years, they can utilize their projects, their games across multiple platforms, even with like Xbox Game Pass, and it will probably turn out better for them in the long run, because while everyone else has been fighting to gain influence in the console race, Xbox's strategy is they want to gain influence in the gaming race. Now, the problem for Microsoft traditionally has been that their first-party games in the last decade or so have really started to lag behind Sony and what they're offering. So we've seen Microsoft, the parent company, obviously, of Xbox, they have been on this massive push. They've been acquiring as many of these studios as they can. It seems like they own damn near like half of the gaming industry at this point, right? And then they move out this whole Game Pass concept. I really don't think even there's much that really competes with the quality of Game Pass in terms of subscription services for games right now. So now that they're kind of looking at all of the other consoles and, even PC really with this like favorable view in terms of what their strategy is going forward, they have way more opportunity to kind of spread these gaming franchises and get them some attention, right? Now, I'll admit it is pretty weird to imagine the concept of like Halo, for instance, running on a PlayStation. Obviously, that's been an Xbox and Microsoft exclusive for quite some time now, but I mean, if that's what Microsoft has to do to compete, that's what they have to do to compete. Now, Sony and Nintendo continue to take a different approach. The recent State of Play showcase did not mention Xbox at all, even though it included multi-platform games. For example, the Monster Hunter Wild segment finished with the release date and PS5 logo only. No word of PC, Steam, or Xbox. Sega's Shinobi Art of Vengeance was shown as coming to PS4 and PS5, even though it's also coming to PC via Steam, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater and Onimusha, Jesus Christ, Way of the Sword were in the same boat. Sony clearly is sticking to what's worked for its gaming business for decades now, reinforcing its consoles as PlayStation's point of interest. Microsoft's well-documented change in strategy, however, has come with a corresponding change in marketing. So, going forward, will we see Xbox consoles? I would assume probably so still, just because, they don't want to just cede all of that over to Sony and Nintendo, just because they haven't like outright won or taken first place or anything like that. I still feel like that's a lot of money for a company to just leave on the table. I really don't see that happening, but in terms of them, like, we've seen with the consoles and stuff, it gets to a point where all of the companies basically go all in every time there's a new generation launch because they want to be the ones to gain a foothold. Is Microsoft really going to do that next time around? I don't think it's going to be as intense. I mean, we probably know who's going to be the real winner here. Nintendo's going to sell 200 million of their Nintendo Switch 2, just like they do with like damn near every other console, it seems like. Sony is going to be the big actual like sit-down console or whatever you want to call it, right? But really, I think what made all of this possible for Microsoft is the fact that the whole, cross-platform gaming wave happened. Back in the day, I remember, and I'm sure you all remember too, you had to actually pick between which console like you and all your friends were gonna get on day one. There's even like whole South Park episodes based around this concept. It was like, I remember, for example, back in the day when I was in school, there was the Xbox 360 and the PS3. Now, I played on PS3 because the multiplayer was free and I always played PlayStation growing up anyway, but obviously a bunch of my friends at school had Xbox 360s, and so, yeah, you're sitting there like, well, I can't really play with all of my friends. That's no longer an issue. That's nothing anyone has to worry about. Now, Now it seems like every video game studio has their own account login creation you have to have. That way you can add all of your friends through their service every time you play each different game. And as a result, you can be on a PlayStation playing with a buddy on Xbox, on PC, some friend on his fucking Steam Deck, right? Like, gaming has become so much more homogenized at this point that this whole competition thing, it's getting a little silly in some regards. Now, I don't know how this is really going to work for PlayStation because, like it says, you know, even though they've been contending with Xbox basically since Xbox came out, now they're at this point where I don't know if it's that Microsoft is admitting defeat more as they're reshuffling the deck of cards so that they can compete better, but I mean, like, I use my PS5 to play sports games primarily because they're not as good or even available on PC. I don't really think that PlayStation Plus's offering of games really competes with Game Pass. I would always prefer Game Pass at this point in time compared to all the other subscriptions. But for Microsoft, this is a massive gamble for Xbox. I mean, they've done all this shifting, they've bought all these studios, they've spent all of this money outright to try and change their strategy to try and compete better in the gaming industry. Now, if it turns out that this somehow just doesn't work out for them, what happens next? I mean, do you try to pivot back to the console game when there's rumblings that Steam is going to try and jump in and make their own, like, Steam box, and you're already not beating Nintendo and Sony on that front? Who really knows? But we are at the point where they have decided, look, this is the only way forward for the company. And even Phil Spencer is very adamant on the fact that this is going to be the biggest move that Xbox can make, and it's going to be the best move that they can make. So while it might be a little weird initially seeing basically like PlayStation logos in the Xbox trailers, it's something that Xbox is doing not only just to compete better, but realistically to provide better value anyway to people across the board. So I guess we'll have to see how it really plays out, but I think it's a pretty interesting and bold strategy here, so I guess we'll have to let them see how it'll play out. So anyway, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel, follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. Thank you to my Watch Optimus subscribers. Your support helps the channel tremendously. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about Microsoft's new strategy and signing out.